Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Jade. Welcome back to this episode of Finding Your Casual Magic. Today we are exploring finding your casual magic through what it means to live a good life. We're digging into everything from slow living to finding freedom within ourselves rather than in external things. And today's guest is a content creator and author extraordinaire. I actually have a kind of funny story of how I came across Adam's content. So I volunteer at a community garden in Brighton, and the woman who runs it, one day we were sitting round and we were drinking cacao, and she's like, Jade, there's this amazing account I follow on Instagram and I think you would love him. He's just so wise. His whole thoughts on the world, I think you'd really resonate with. And it was Adam. I came across this man living in a floating home, a narrow boat in England. And the more I dug into his story, the more intrigued I was. I found out that he had hitchhiked all the way from England to India across 5 years of not taking a single plane or train, literally doing over 1,000 journeys by car. He speaks so much on what it means to be a man and kind of being a healthy role model of masculinity. And in particular, he talks a lot about what it means to live a good life. And as someone who has lived such an alternative lifestyle, I think he has so much wisdom to share on how we can all find out what that authentic life looks like for us. So I feel very, very honored to be welcoming him to the podcast today. Welcome, Adam.
Wow, that was the nicest introduction I've ever heard.
Oh, I literally can hype you up any day. Like this book, so anyone watching, you can see the book on screen. I had the pleasure of reading your book for a few days and I feel like I've really been given a window into your world and life and what's shaped you. And yeah, I just can't wait to dig into it more.
I'm very, very honoured to be here and really grateful to meet you in person as well.
We have two traditions on the podcast to start us off. The first is that one of you guys listening has sent in a moment of casual magic in their week. So a little moment that's beautiful in their everyday life. And I thought we could just listen to it to set the tone. This is from Maya.
Hi Jay, I'm Maya from Prague. I was supposed to go to some study event and I really didn't want to. It was quite far and I didn't feel like socializing. But when I was walking to catch a tram, I saw some old lady and she was really beautiful. She had blue eyeshadows and she was smoking cigarette like some 1940s actress. And she looked at me and said, "Oh wow, you're such a beautiful girl." So I smiled at her back and I sat next to her and we chatted for a little bit. Since then, when I came to that event, it was just beautiful. It was one of these moments when everything felt right. I don't know how to describe this. Synchronicities, casual magic. But when you know that you're on the right path, you know in your heart that everything is right. Meeting this lady, it started all the series of a very special but casual magic.
Aww,
amazing.
I love that.
So nice.
I feel like you as a connection advocate would love this interaction with a stranger.
Yes, that is very much a bit of me. Definitely something we're lacking in today's world for sure. So,
for sure, yeah. That's gorgeous. Thank you, Maya. Before we fully dive into today's episode, one of the best ways to embrace alternative lifestyles is to find out new perspectives from traveling and being in new cultures. And one of the most incredible things that I've done is learning new languages. So when I lived in Buenos Aires, I did something called a Lingoda Sprint, which is where I had Spanish classes every other day for 60 days. It just meant that I was able to make so many friends. One friend that I made in Buenos Aires, I literally got to meet her entire family. They didn't speak any English. And because of my Spanish knowledge, I was able to have dinner with them and get to know about their family and their lifestyles and how they do life. I just highly recommend learning languages. I think it's one of the most important skills you can learn. There is this amazing online language school called Lingoda. It is the only way I would recommend learning a language if you're serious about it. In 60 days, you will become conversational. You can have classes every day or every other day online with a native speaking teacher and a small group of people from all around the world. And they're just really fun. And like the curriculum is just amazing. And you learn the things you actually need day to day to get by in a country. I highly recommend signing up if you want to learn a language this summer. You can use the code magical20 for €20 off. So that is MAGICAL 20, or you can just click the link in the description. Thank you, Lingoda, for sponsoring today's video. Let's jump back in. And the second tradition to start us off is I love to invite all of you listening and you, Adam, to take 60 seconds with me to kind of ground into our bodies, into space. And for any of you listening who have never meditated before, I promise it's not scary. You don't have to be enlightened at the end of it. And I also dare you not to skip it. I know it's very easy to just skip past, but if you can, I invite you to just become more present with the surroundings. If you're cycling or if you're on public transport, no need to close your eyes, just kind of be more aware of where you are right now. Take a second to notice where you are in space. Are you in a room? If so, how big is the room? Are you outside? What can you see? And if you feel comfortable to do so, gently close your eyes. Start to become aware of your breathing. Notice where you feel the breath in your body. Maybe noticing the rise of your chest and belly at the inhale and fall at the exhale. Notice if you're carrying tension anywhere in your body. If you can, try to allow that tension to release as you exhale. Start to visualize a version of yourself living fully and authentically. What are you doing? Who are you with? How does it feel in your body? And maybe invite in this affirmation. I am worthy of living authentically and expressing myself freely. We're going to do a final deep breath in through the nose and a deep breath out through the nose. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Welcome to the episode. Adam, I have to say it. You live a very cool lifestyle. You're not living the average life in Britain. What kind of made you gravitate towards this alternative lifestyle?
Yeah, it's a really good question and one that I ask myself a lot. I think there was a real catalyst in my life when I was 17. I lost my father, which I'm sure we'll maybe like unpack throughout the episode. And there was something within the grieving process where, it felt like this veil that was over society was like lifted away from me. And all of a sudden, I'm like 16, 17, all of my friends are out, wondering what nightclub they're going to try and get into this weekend or who they're going to kiss at the weekend. And I'm there thinking like, okay, so my dad's gone. Where is he? Will I see him again one day when I go? And like all these kind of big existential questions, right?
Yeah.
And amongst this questioning brought this real beauty of like, well, I don't know the answer to any of these questions, right? I'm a big believer the only certainty in life is uncertainty, and still always on the journey of trying to avoid seeking certainty, because I think that's what keeps me and a lot of people stuck. On that quest was like, okay, well, if I don't know what's going to happen when I die, but I know I've only got a very temporary time on this planet, I really feel like I want to create an existence that was full of experiences. And I was looking at my aunts and uncles or my cousins or people before me, and I was noticing a lot of narrative around, I don't like my job, or, that's just life, or like, I wish I did this kind of real defeatist attitude. Maybe let's say a lack of contentment and a potential seeking for, like so excited, like 10 weeks till I go on holiday. And I'm not saying it's not good to be excited for things, but it feels like it's coming from a place of like 10 weeks till I can escape my everyday existence.
Like wishing away your life. And
it was this moment where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I know I'm going to vow to live it through experiences and how I feel I want to show up in that moment, because it just felt like a silly move to just be stuck and in this, rat race or whatever you want to call it. And I always want to caveat by being like, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to work a corporate job or
No,
be a
not at
banker
all.
or this on that, but you just have to be content with what you're doing. Like I've got some friends that work very quotation normal jobs and would have no desire to live how I want to live. But rather than ask them like, how's work been, I'm like, oh, you content with what you're doing at work? And they're like, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm like, then you're winning.
Yeah.
You know, for myself, there's sometimes like having too much freedom can also make you feel trapped. So sometimes I feel like they're more content than I am. In a very long-winded way to answer your question, it was this catalyst of grief that made me think, okay, how am I going to live? Because I'm not going to just follow an expected route or pattern, I guess.
Yeah. It actually reminds me a lot of the start of chapter 3 in your book, where you introduce us to the most common 3 regrets of people on their deathbed, which are the following. 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And 3, I wish I had let myself be happier. And I think it's so evident in your life story that you are one of these really rare people who has tried really hard to ensure that you don't have those regrets.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was sort of a turning point at that time of grief where you kind of introspected about what that life could look like for you, a life where you are authentic to yourself.
Yeah, I think I remember there was a couple of weeks after my father's death where I was like in bed just crying like every day. And I remember this like really pivotal moment where I said to myself, okay, enough now, like enough crying. You're just going to like take yourself to another place mentally. So what I did was I laid down on my bed and I closed my eyes and like I relaxed my arms by my side. This was before I knew anything about like meditation or anything like this. And I said, I'm just going to imagine I'm on a beach with my friends. And I remember so clearly just imagining I was on this beach. I was like lying on the sand and my friends were like around me. We were drinking a beer. And as I came to, I wasn't sure if I'd been in this dream state for like 30 seconds or honestly like an hour. But when I came out of it, something felt different, like something felt like it shifted.
Wow.
And it was the first time where I realized like, oh, hold on a minute. I actually have more control over my thoughts and my mind than I actually thought I had. And it was funny because at this time I was like, oh my gosh, if I just think about happy things, then I'm going to be happy forever. And I went on this rampage, like telling anyone that would listen, like, guys, are you sad? Just think about something positive and like you're going to be happy. And that was really my, beginning infancy into like mindset and mind control, which, I definitely don't now still stand by. Just think positively and you'll be happy because that's really dangerous. But what it more taught me is I believe we all have a lot more control over our mind and thoughts than we think we do. And what I was doing was starting to detach from my mind a bit, starting to detach from my thoughts a bit, because it's our thoughts that are often keeping us stuck and keeping us in a place we don't want to be in.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was this kind of adversity that I faced through losing my father. I look back now and often refer to it as like the experience I'm most grateful for in my life. Because I do not believe I would be sitting here speaking to you, would have written a book if I hadn't gone through that experience. And it took me a really long time to openly admit that I'm grateful for my dad dying, because it felt really like selfish and it felt really like twisted, and death is a whole nother thing we can go into. It makes people feel really uncomfortable.
Sure.
Like how like mean that you can say that, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the experience was the experience. I'm not going to change that experience, but how I can relate to the experience or how I can leverage the experience for my own existence that is my choice, So, and I choose to be grateful for it.
Yeah. And that gratitude doesn't negate love and missing them, right? And like wishing it hadn't happened in other ways. But I think when life hands us adversity, as you mentioned in your book, it's kind of up to you what you do with that challenge. And particularly when it's something you can't change, that is literally out of your control, then the only thing you can control is what you do next and how you deal with those feelings and how you then think through it. Yeah, I would love to talk more about adversity, and I bet a lot of people listening to this podcast are going through really tough times, and I'm sure that the nature of that tough time looks different for everyone, but adversity is something very human. I think it can be difficult to hear people say, oh, adversity is going to just transform you positively, right? Like you can't see it yet, but one day this is going to be something you're grateful for and it's going to shape you in the ways that you need. Like, can you speak more to what you mean about having gratitude for adversity, maybe particularly while you're in that tough time?
Yeah, it's a really nice point because I definitely never want to come across of this, like, you know, what we call like toxic positivity of being like, oh, you're down, don't you worry, like the lessons are coming. It's like sitting in it is really important. And I myself, you know, when I'm triggered by something or I'm going through a tough time, I'm like, yeah, I'm not some like holy guru that just like lifts myself out and being like, the lessons are coming, you know. I have the same anger and the same hissy fits and like all of this stuff, you know, throw my toys out the pram for sure. I think I started to notice a lot of the main people I was inspired by in life, whether that was like other authors or philosophers or podcasters or just people that I'd meet, entrepreneurs, a lot of their stories seem to stem from like this trigger moment that happened, something bad happened to them, and it seemed to like change the trajectory of their life. So I think when I started to notice this pattern, I felt like, okay, there's something in adversity that definitely has a correlation to rising through it. But obviously, you know, there's other people where bad stuff happens to them and it sends them on another path. One of my favorite things to talk about is this idea of like cause and effect. So when something happens to us, we basically have two options. We either choose to be cause of it or be affected by it. So for example, if we're always in the effect stage, it's like someone has said something bad to me, and because of them I now feel like really sad, like I've let it affect me, you know, and it's because of them. When you become the cause of a situation, you're like, this person has done something bad to me and I have chosen to feel bad about it, because then you take back all the control. Like you're not able to control anything that happens around you. Like, my boss said this to me and now I'm in a bad mood because they did this and they're this and da da da. So like constantly in effect, which is so many of us sit in all the time. But like, okay, my boss said this to me and I can't believe I've allowed myself to do that. Because once we do that, okay, how can I allow myself to actually feel differently? So it's not like, it can sometimes roll into, you don't want to blame yourself for these things, but you need to regain control. You need to regain your center and your composure in these situations, because that's where I think we can start to transform them. Because we sit in this blame and we sit in this comparison and we sit in this like giving our energy away to like everyone around us all the time. I found the more centered I can be in these moments, it's like you just build this kind of shield around you, I guess, that just makes it easier, I think, to navigate.
Can you recommend a step one for someone to be able to shift from affect to feeling like they are the cause of how they're feeling in certain situations?
Yeah, I think compassion has been like the running theme throughout my life, and much sometimes to the dismay of my friends and my wife, because like they'll come back and be like, blah 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 just did this to me, and I'm like, you know, like they're on their own journey, and they're like, no, I just want you to turn around and say that they shouldn't have done that and that they're a horrible person. Yeah, literally. I'm like, no, sorry, they're horrible, I hate them. And I'm like, but I don't. Like, I really, really believe and love the phrase that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have. I feel like we show up in life expecting other people to act with our resources and our mindset. And it's just ridiculous, right? Like, when we look at the nature of reality, there's 6 or 8 billion people all live in their completely own unique real world. And we walk around wanting everyone around us to be seeing it through our lens. Like, the best example for me is in a car. Like, when someone's driving and then someone cuts them up or does something and they're like, you should have seen this and da 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 da. And I'm like, you're both living like alternate realities. And it's like, they can't drive and they can't this. Maybe they, I don't know, just sneezed, or maybe they just had a really bad phone call, or like something has happened
on the way
to
to
them.
the hospital and a loved one is ill.
Could be anything, right? But for me, I think I stopped being a lot less triggered by people and feeling affected by what other people have done to me when I had started to have more compassion for them. So be like, you know, if someone's acted a certain way to me, it's coming from a place of pain. Like, and it goes so deep. Like, even if you look at war or like terrorism or all these terrible things, and I mean, I don't know if this is a bit taboo to go into, but you see it, right? Like these people that are growing up and being like maybe bred or indoctrinated, like, are they bad people or are they just doing the best they can with the resources that they've been given? And it's not to condone that they should be doing what they're doing, but there's, for me, a deeper human layer there that it's like, if we can spread more compassion out to people, then one, we're going to be less triggered by the way they react to us. And two, rather than feeling as affected by them, we can be like, okay, this experience has happened and this person has done this to me. And how do I want to handle it? Because I think the compassion removes some of the anger and it removes some of the inflicted pain, I guess, that we're giving ourselves, because anger is a painful emotion to sit in. Like, when I'm angry, I feel it in my body, like You really do. And it can last and it can linger.
And you think that the anger is affecting the other person negatively and that you're almost receiving justice through being angry. But I think when you cling to that resentment, that's actually hurting you far more than it's getting the justice from the other person.
Yeah, holding a grudge is like, you know, the worst form of self pain you can possibly give yourself. I made a post recently, it was like inspired by Alan Watts, talking about before you can really start to heal, there's 4 people you have to forgive. And it's your parents, your loved ones that didn't stay, anyone that's ever hurt you, and then yourself. And it was crazy because it's talking about, you know, your parents, they gave you life, like you wouldn't be here without them, and they've made their mistakes and they've done all of these things. And it was so fascinating. As the post started to pick up a lot of traction, I was getting challenged a lot by people being like, I will never forgive my mother, like, you know, she beat me and she did this and she did that. And I'm not here to tell anyone that's been in that situation what they should or shouldn't do, because everything's an opinion. But there was a part of me that felt when you forgive someone, you're not condoning what they did. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. Forgiveness isn't condoning. Forgiveness is setting yourself free. Because when you forgive, when you accept it, that's when you can start to truly live a fulfilled life. But whilst holding on to this pain and anger, as you really nicely put, they're not experiencing this anger, only you are. And it's really that piece between, we're not condoning what they did, we're not saying it's right, we're not saying in any way it should have happened. But by not forgiving it, you're staying stuck in it. 100%. And this woman that talks about the regrets of the dying, they say it in there, you know, why did I stay so angry for so long? Like, what blockages did that put up in my relationships, in my aspirations, in my opportunities, in my distrust for humanity and society, right? So it's almost like a beautifully selfish act to be compassionate and forgive other people for what they've done.
Yeah. And I love that in those 4 people, the 4 groups that we need to forgive, that the 4th one is ourselves. Because I think in my own experience, so much of my capacity to have compassion for others is mirrored in the extent to which I have compassion for myself. Oh, hello, little bumblebee. Guys, a bumblebee has entered the room. And when you're so self-critical and judgmental of the way that you're handling things and always wishing that you could do better, you meet other people with that same judgment, which is why, you know, I personally think that meditation is the key to so much healing for the entire world, because in that solitude with yourself, you're learning to sit with all that like anger and judgment and resentment towards yourself and how you're acting, and then you're able to offer that kindness back to everyone. And that would prevent a lot of wars.
Yeah, 100%. It's so funny, like the whole wellness space like area, because I also equally love meditation and journaling. But I was speaking to a friend recently, and you know, she was saying that she's feeling like it's like not helping her. Like, you know, she's like, I'm green juicing and I'm saunering and I'm doing all the things. And then someone was like, you know, it can reach a point where if you feel so stuck in your own space that it can become almost a bit like self-indulgent, this like self-criticism. And what about you actually just got up and did something nice for someone else? Because it like, I've found this to be really true. Like when I'm too in this space where I feel like I can't forgive myself, or, you know, I'm meditating, but the thoughts are just so negative and painful and it carries out throughout the day. It's like, okay, this self-healing journey or this self-growth journey that we all are continuously on, it's about ourselves, but there's other external experiences involved that can really help us feel better. Like being nice to other people. Like when I feel really down, if you get up and go and do a good deed for someone, you'll realize the knock-on effect that can actually have on yourself. And it's it can be quite a dangerous dance, I think, between like doing all the self-work, you know, and I'm healed and I'm this and I'm that. Then you've still got to go out and interact
coming from
with
such
all
a
these
place
people.
of self-loathing almost, right? Like, why am I not healing? Why am I not feeling better? Why are my thoughts not better? Which is like actually just keeping you in this negative spiral.
I loved it once when I was having a really down phase and I was that narrative, someone went to me, do you know what, like, you're really not that important.
Savage,
but I was like, so true. And they were like, and neither am I, like the person said it to me. But when we're so lost in our own self-importance and our self-thoughts, it can be like this self-fulfilling vicious cycle 100%. That you're never going to get out of. I've had like some periods of quite deep like existentialism, you know, as I kind of alluded to, like, what is the point of any of this, right? Like none of it is real. And that can lead you on like a really dark path. It can also be that leads to some amazing like spiritual insights. But I once worked with a therapist, and when I was having one of these periods of like nothing matters, I was like, nothing matters. I was like, this therapy doesn't matter, my marriage doesn't matter, like nothing matters. And she was like, Adam, one part, you're right, nothing matters. But on the other side, everything matters so much. And when she said that to me, I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And then that led me on this thing of trying to choose what matters, right? Me waking up and making my favorite morning coffee in my favorite mug and sitting on the front of the boat drinking it has become something that now matters so much. And if that mug, you know, I'm often in other people's boats. If I've left my mug on the other person's boat, sometimes that could matter to me. Like I have to go and get that mug because I've chosen that now matters.
Yes, you've made it sacred.
I've made it matter.
To other people, it looks like a mug, but to you, it's so much more.
Of course. And that's what I've really had to kind of hone in on is like, ultimately nothing matters. That mug doesn't matter, and the coffee doesn't matter, and where I drink it doesn't matter, and if I drink it doesn't matter. But actually, you know, we've got this life and we're here, so let's try and experience it as much as we can. So let's choose what matters, you know? And that's been a really big shift for me of what am I going to allow myself to matter today?
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, in thinking about what it means to live a good life, one of the ideas that I've taken from Buddhism is this concept of surrender, where I say in my own mind, I am nothing and I am everything. Because in a way, you know, you don't really have a self. Like our concept of self is a story that we tell ourselves based on the roles that we play, the stories we've inherited from family members, memories, experiences. But, you know, when you really close your eyes and you go inward, there's kind of nothing there. What is it? Like 98% of atoms are like empty space. There's so much nothingness within us. And yet, because everything is also nothingness, we are also everything. And we're so interdependent with nature and our communities and everyone else. I love that, this blissful insignificance of ourselves, and yet the importance that comes with everything and everyone also being blissfully insignificant, and that you get to choose the meaning that you create.
The duality, it's the paradox.
Literally.
It's all of it.
I know.
The blessing and the curse. I have a friend who, like, when I introduce this stuff to him, he's very like, oh, you think a lot, don't you? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, you know, once you open the Pandora's box and you jump in, like there's no getting out. And he was like, if you could turn back 15 years and not jump in, would you still jump? And I was like, oh, I'd dive 2 feet deep. I believe your scale to experience becomes so much deeper. So yes, the pain can feel so much more painful, but the joy can feel so much more joyous. So
because you're not suppressing any of it.
No, the level of experience just absolutely widens. So yeah, it's everything and nothing.
Yeah, so it's evident that you've come to kind of all these realizations now, but I would love to throw it back a little.
Let's do it.
To Adam going on this massive adventure of hitchhiking to India with your now wife. I'd love to hear kind of the inspiration behind making that journey, why India, and maybe you can just tell us some stories from that time.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So yeah, I was lucky enough to meet my wife when we were 19 years old. So about 12 years ago, we met at university. At that time, we were very hedonistic. Actually, we were running like techno parties and we were involved in lots of festivals. And we were very much met on the basis of like music and freedom and liberation, but from a very hedonistic lens. Graduated university, we stayed around for a while and we were like, we kind of need out of here. Like it's feeling like a bit of a toxic cauldron now, this kind of party lifestyle, let's say. And still on this trajectory of like, well, I'm not going to go and get like a real job because that just feels like a very dangerous path for me to step into. So we decided to spend a year saving money. We saved about £5,000 between us and we packed a bag and we took a £10 bus from London to Amsterdam. And the initial plan was maybe we'll be gone for 2 weeks, maybe we'll be gone for 2 months, maybe we'll be gone for 2 years, like kind of leaving it open. But before going, we started to calculate like, you know, what would stop us being able to travel, right? Money, right? Like our parents weren't able to give us any money. We didn't have masses of savings. We figured out the main 2 challenges to travel financially are the actual travel, getting from A to B. So bus fares, train fares, flights, and accommodation, hotels, hostels, etc. We was watching a bit of YouTube, like getting inspired here and there. And I was like, well, what if we just tried to eradicate both of those costs? Then all we really need is food. Well, at this time, we were quite happy to eat like bread and cheese most days. I was like calculating, actually, maybe we could go for like a few years if we did it like this. So we decided after being on the road for a few weeks, let's just only hitchhike. also from this kind of idea of I love the idea of human connection and human experience. I've been an advocate for not watching the news for a really long time because it feels like a lot of fear mongering, a lot of disconnection, a lot of narrative around do not trust people that aren't similar to you, that aren't the same race as you, that aren't the same nationality as you. You know, the way headlines are projected. If a certain person in society does something, we'll maybe use their ethnic background, whereas if it's someone else, they might use their profession. So take from that what you will. But yeah, I was like, let's just, this whole stranger danger thing, I just really didn't buy into. And, you know, when you're brought up, you know, don't accept candy from a stranger or don't do this and definitely don't get in the car with a stranger. So I was like, let's play with the, you know, boundaries of life a little bit. And we were like, let's hitchhike. So we started it with not kind of an end goal in sight.
So the Netherlands was the starting point.
The Netherlands was the starting point, and it's the best place to start hitchhiking because not only is it very well accepted there's actually points in the Netherlands where you get to like the beginnings of motorways and there's a big sign with a thumb printed on it, as in like hitchhike here, like this is a good spot to hitchhike.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Crazy.
We
I'm
had no
half
idea.
Dutch.
Oh
Didn't
really?
know that.
Yeah, it's amazing. So to show how it felt very safe, like this is like,
it's like,
you know,
culturally encouraged.
Yeah, and you know, like we're bred despite being like trying to make my own rules, like, you know, you're a product of your environment, and you know, if there's a sign, it's safe, you know, if you can wait at this sign, then it feels comforting.
Why do I feel like that just would never happen in England?
Never. Like I have hitchhiked in England, we can get onto that after. It's a really interesting experience. But yeah, and as the time went on, we decided to try and hitchhike to India. That was going to be the goal, and we kind of didn't care how long it was going to take to get there, what was going to happen along the way. We didn't have a straight route. We kind of just went. And it ended up being, this 5.5 year journey on the road with highs, lows, many, many things in between, which we can definitely delve into. But on the hitchhiking front, we were picked up by over 1,000 complete strangers from every walk of life, from every, you know, some extremely wealthy people to extremely poor people, to families, to single women, to married couples, to groups of friends. And just was able to learn about people's lives in such a close, intimate proximity of a car journey was just like really, really eye-opening, you know. I think growing up, it can be really easy to be stuck in like a bubble of what the real world is because you're a product of your environment, as I said, and maybe you've grown up around the same people who are now doing similar things to you. And I think we unknowingly create echo chambers around our life. Get very lost in the same narratives and circles, and sometimes aren't even challenged. Our own beliefs aren't even challenged. So to just be open to all these types of people was like one big human experiment, really. And we felt we were taking all the bits we really liked to apply to ourselves, and the bits we didn't like, reaffirming that maybe that's not how we want to live.
And I think there's a certain humility to entering someone's space, someone's car, that's almost saying, I will listen, right? And that your way, at least for right now, is the right way because I am coming into this space. I think that's so beautiful and so rare nowadays that we put ourselves in these positions to merely learn and listen without judgment. And obviously you can come out of the car in the end and be like, oh my God, you know, damn, okay, that's one way to do life and maybe I don't agree with it. But I love that for that journey, for that conversation, you're so open. And I wonder how different the world would look if we all had to do that more often with complete random strangers.
But the thing is, and my whole message is we can. Like ultimately it got to the point where on the first leg of this journey, we'd been on the road about 4 years and we got to the border of Iran and we were struggling to get a visa for Pakistan. It was seeming less and less probable that we'd be able to go all the way by land to India, which was the goal. It was the dream. It was like, we are hitchhiking to India and there was no stopping us. I actually ended up having a mental breakdown on the side of the road in Turkey because I think a lot of this existentialism had kind of creeped back in. I suffer with OCD, so like intrusive thoughts can be really like prevalent in my mind. Growing up, intrusive thoughts would show up all the time at school of like, you know, if you don't like run to that lamppost in the next 30 seconds and touch it, like your mum's going to drop dead. Or like you'd be standing on like a train platform and you'd be like, wonder what would happen if you like threw yourself on the tracks. And you don't want to do it, but like the thoughts can be really controlling. I've got loads of great ways to now keep them basically always at peace, but they were showing up on the road. And I think part of it was we were too free. So like we'd created this life now where, you know, we weren't paying for much. We were making jewelry at this point because we'd learned this skill and was selling it on the road. We could wake up each day, didn't really know what day it was, didn't really need to. Like, it was complete freedom, right? But I believe truly that too much freedom can make you feel trapped. And it got to the point where my mind was playing tricks on me. I was lacking purpose. I was lacking discipline. I was lacking routine. All the things I was trying to run away from, I'd run away from, but I'd run too far. And, you know, anchoring back into what the human experience is became really, really important. So I say to people, you know, like, you can have the same fulfillment going into a coffee shop, and if someone's sitting next to you, ask how their day is, getting onto a train and smiling at the person in front of you and entering a conversation. Like, you don't need to pack a backpack, travel the world for 5 years and have a mental breakdown to connect with people. Like, trust me, like, it didn't work. Like, it worked in some ways, but, you know, there's a way more fast track where you can do it. And I pride myself, today included, on my way here, if you can strike up conversations with people. You can not be scared of the person next to you, because people, strangers, have so much to teach you.
Did you have a chat with someone today?
Of course.
Train?
Like,
tell me about it.
It's very casual. Like, I also think there's this boundary of wanting people. Some people aren't. It is confronting.
Yes.
So it's
Particularly in the south of
the
England.
smallest act of, like, sitting on a train. If there's someone next to me, I'll turn and be like, oh, hello. You know, like, even that, because, like, we're going to share this close proximity of each other. I find it in London, it baffles me, because if we look at, like, human evolution, right, in these human body forms, we've been in them for about 300,000 years, and about 290,000 of those years we were, you know, living in tribes, living in communities, living in nature, knowing only the kind of surroundings around us, building these, like, tribes, right? And in only the last, I think, probably 300 years, so, like, less than 0.9% of that time, we have evolved so quickly based on the Industrial Revolution, based on the rise of the internet. And evolution is meant to be a slow and gradual process. And we have fast-tracked it so much, and we're wondering why so many people are anxious, lonely, depressed. It's not and this is going back to the self-work, it's not an individual problem. It's a collective evolutionary conscious problem that we've been thrust into. And it's allowed us to be so disconnected that when we're on a train and all of these other humans are around us, the same species as us, and we're all just there, like, not looking at each other, it's so dysregulating for our nervous system. Because we evolved to be connected. We evolved to be connected to each other and to nature. We are in a constant state of dysregulation because of living in the fear of the disconnected society we're in. So I feel it so much on the train. I'm like, I don't want to be on the underground to everyone be like, hello, 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 because that also feels weird, right? That is literally, I think, the biggest problem that we're facing as a human species is we've evolved in these 200 years so way too fast, and we can't, our minds and our bodies, we just can't keep up.
And it's like the constant micro-rejection that you receive on public transport in London. Like, as someone who lived in London for 8 months and then had to leave because I just couldn't handle it. It's like, you know, I'd sort of enter a tube with the attempt to be open-hearted, you know, with the attempt to, like, give good energy to people. And it's like, if you make eye contact with someone and smile and you just receive this deadpan stare in return, there's only so many times that you can smile at strangers before you yourself have to, like, protect yourself, essentially. And you're right, it's so dysregulating. And I think there's a knock-on effect that then you stop trying to open conversation, you become distrustful of anyone who does attempt to do that with you. It's so difficult because it's a collective problem to find solutions. You know, it's like you need to be nourished in community spaces.
100%. Like, I was in a cafe not too long ago, and then the waitress came over and I said, oh, hello, how are you? And she was really taken aback, and I was like, what, like, are you okay? And she was like, oh, no one's, like, really asked me how I am. And I had this real conflicted feeling of being, like, really happy that I gave her that experience, but really sad that it was such a shock to her
like,
to be asked,
like,
minimum, how are you? And I say in the book about, like, you know, people like, well, how are we going to change the world? Like, you know, we're just individuals. It's the governments and it's the politicians and it's this. And I believe if even everyone listening to this went out tomorrow and asked the person behind the counter in their shop, how are you? Or, like, are you having a good day? These little changes, I really optimistically believe that will ripple out more and more and more. And I think that's how we actually instill change into people. It's the micro moments of magic that we can kind of so easily do. It's free, you know. You can either go to the shop, get your protein shake, scan it through and say thanks and leave, or you can be like, oh, are you having a nice day? And it's those few extra seconds, I think, that just change the energy and the culture of a situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So another reflection, if you don't mind, I was just thinking
Go
about the
on.
train. I think also I struggle with as a man.
Mm.
I want
Oh,
to.
what? Kidding.
Boo.
Ew.
Exactly. I get on the train, it's a woman next to me.
Yeah.
I want to say hello from a form
Yeah.
of connection, right? Like I'm married, I'm not hitting on her, but
Yeah.
I understand the narrative of like make women feel safe, which I know is very important. But as a safe man, obviously this woman doesn't know this, it's causing more disconnection, right? Like I'm really cautious of trying to connect with someone because I don't want to put anyone in a space where they feel uncomfortable. And I completely understand why women do feel uncomfortable. It's obviously terrible what happens. But this juxtaposition of like, I don't know the answers, but again, keeping us disconnected. Like, well, don't say hello to her because she might think you're going to like follow her home, you know, which I get is I haven't
and you also
had to
can't
endure that.
explicitly say like, I know that so many men are awful, but I promise I'm not going to kidnap you and hurt you. You know, you can't. You should have like a sign. Or,
Yeah,
like a little badge.
Because that would sound freaky as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like all these little moments then again, and these complexities of connection where it could and was so much more effortless, I think, at one time.
Yes, for sure.
You know?
Even when we're speaking about hitchhiking, right? I think a lot of people listening to this would love, in theory, to have an experience like that. But, you know, as a woman, I don't feel comfortable doing that alone just because you have no idea what's going to happen, right? And I do feel that as a man, you are much safer than as a little girly.
Yeah, and look, obviously I can never speak from the other side because I've never lived through the woman's lens. But what I do always say to that is, on our journey, and we end up living in India for like over a year, we met so many solo female hitchhikers.
Okay.
So I'm not saying go and do it, you'll be fine, but it was interesting. The narrative around it is interesting based on the experience that I found whilst being on the road, particularly in India. Like a lot of people, I'd love to go to India, but like I wouldn't because I'm like a girl and like I'd only be able to go with another girl or something like that. I was like, oh, some of my best friends and most powerful people I've met were hitchhiking alone all around India. Met girls hitchhiking in Turkey alone and Spain and France and living here and there. So I'm not saying it's less or more dangerous, but I don't sometimes like the narrative of like, well, I couldn't because I'm this, because I met loads of incredible women doing it, right?
Do you have any advice for maybe women or like people of a certain ethnic group that feel that there are barriers to feeling safe in different contexts and in certain countries? What would you recommend for them to feel empowered to attempt something like this, potentially for the first time ever? Are there sort of safeguards that you'd recommend as someone who has hitchhiked a lot or has met so many people who have done this successfully as a solo female traveller? How can you feel empowered to take the risk?
I really love that question. Thank you. First, I would say your gut instinct tells you a lot. So like there's this rule within hitchhiking, like if someone stops for you, you don't have to get in the car. Like, you know, even if you've been waiting 2 hours, if they stop and say, do you want to ride? That doesn't mean you have to get in.
Nice. So you don't have to be polite.
No. Well, be polite, but you don't have to get in the car. That did happen sometimes. Like a gut feeling was like, thank you, but like actually we're okay. So that's one thing. I'd also say the hitchhiking was really enriching, but when it came to where we slept, because I think that's another important part to touch on, like how did we not use hotels and stuff? We mainly used a website called Couchsurfing, which is essentially like Airbnb, but there's no money exchanged. And rather than just using a room to sleep, people are opening their house for essentially like a cultural exchange. So when I was at university in Leeds, we used to host people before we traveled, people that would be passing through Leeds, wanted to meet some people that live locally. And the idea is, you know, if you pay to go to an Airbnb and you've got stuff to do, you just get the key and you don't have to interact with your host. You go to a couch surfing experience and you're basically surrendering to whatever they have planned, which is sometimes nothing. Sometimes they're like, here's the key, like I'm busy, and they've just given you a free stay, which is lovely. And sometimes there's a whole wealth of activities and you're going for dinner with friends and you're da-da-da-da-da. On couch surfing, you're able to have reviews. Obviously, hitchhiking is a completely random person. Couchsurfing was incredible because the intimacy of being in someone's car, yes, but the intimacy of being in people's homes was even more special. But, you know, we could look at, you know, if 180 reviews from both single women to families have all stayed in this person's house and wrote these glowing reviews, I would say that my gut would say it's okay. So I'd say that would be a nice first step if people wanted to connect with travelers. Maybe you don't want to hitchhike, but maybe you don't want to stay in a hotel and you want to connect with locals. Couchsurfing, I'm the biggest advocate for. We stayed again in, God knows, close to 1,000 random people's homes in everywhere. In the first 3 years, we only used paid accommodation twice. I'd say it was like 70% couch surfing and like 30% wild camping. We had our tent. It's amazing. People are like, we'd stay with families because they wanted their children to meet people from different countries, or we'd stay with uni students that just thought it was fun to host people, or couples that used to travel but now don't, so it kind of feels like they're traveling because they've got this energy coming through their space. I'm still friends with people we couch surf with then. And then also I'd say I've got a chapter in the book called Taking the First Step. And I think if you're having this desire to live a life differently to the one you're living, or finding more community or finding more purpose, like I say, please don't feel listening to this, I need to leave my marriage, quit my job and hitchhike to India, because it's not the answer. It's what's the first small step I can take to make this dream more of a reality? Is there a local community group that you're like, oh, I should always go to that, but like work's too busy, so like I'll just go another week? Or is it this asking someone a question in a shop, or going up to someone in a park? And I like compliments. Like if you walk past someone in a park and you like the book they're reading and you say, oh, I've not read that book, is it any good? You know, or like I really like the top you're wearing, or whatever that is. It's such easy means of connection. And I think taking the first step is more important, because that's laying the foundations for a new level of awareness in your mind for like the life you want to create. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. And I think the beauty is when you take that first step, you will often soon gain evidence that it improves your life, right? Like, I think of countless moments I've had with strangers that have absolutely changed my life. So my parents met on a plane.
Wow.
So I think I was raised around this narrative that strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. And I've met so many friends from planes.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, I still keep in contact with people. I have a pen pal that I met on public transport. Often you do have to take that first step to show yourself that it's worth doing, especially when it can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think, look, you know, you've created this amazing community around you, and I didn't know that part of you, but it makes so much sense. Like, I think when you're open, like people are drawn to watching you for a certain reason, and I imagine one of those reasons is because you're open to people. Like I say, taking that first step. Like people watching this don't need to go and I say, like, you know, start a podcast or start a YouTube channel, but if it's connection you're looking for, you can find it really, really easily, like on your doorstep. And the first step thing as well is because, like I say, my thing was I'm going to hitchhike to India, and I didn't end up physically hitchhiking to India because we didn't get there. So whatever goal you have as the end goal is going to change anyway. That's why you only can take the first step, because if it's like leaving your house and leaving your job to go and do X career as that end goal, I guarantee you it's going to go on a different path. So not being so attached to what is going to happen in the future and just going with it becomes so much more achievable.
There's this quote I love, and it's, I'm inspired by the path that I'm on. And I love that, because it's not saying anything about the destination. Maybe you kind of have a rough idea of where you're going, but you're inspired actually by the act of being on the path. You like the path itself. You like how you're walking it. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. Take the first step, and just the act of doing something like that will lead you to a place you want to be at.
For sure, because I always believe, how do you know what you want when it's not something you've had? So I believe we should chase feelings rather than things. So it's like someone will be like, you know, I'll be happy when I have this dream job, or I'll be happy when I have this car, but you've never had that car or that dream job, so how can you possibly know how it's going to feel? So it's like, rather than being like, I want to have X, I try and lead by, I want to feel X. It's like, I want to feel more content, I want to feel more layers of human connection because I felt them and it feels really good.
I love that.
But to be like, I think it's dangerous to say I want to have, and then anything material that you've never had before, because I just have never understood, how can you know you want it? Jim Carrey, who I love, he says, my one wish is that everyone becomes a rich, successful millionaire, so they realize that it's not the answer. And it's like, you know, we're being told this by people that have made it, the level of dissatisfaction it can bring. It's always a question I ask people to ask themselves is, how do I want to feel? Rather than like, what do I want to have? Because one feels a lot safer to me, actually, because the level of dissatisfaction you hear from many of the greats before us, that when they got the thing, it wasn't translated into a feeling, you know, because we were chasing the thing rather than what we thought it was going to make us feel.
On the topic of alternative lifestyles, I would love if you could speak to your experience living in this community off-grid with 70 people in Portugal, and just to hear some of your reflections about what that taught you about human connection and kind of relationships in general and communal living.
Yeah, it was a really crazy story. So there was 3 months during the trip when my wife Lauren decided she wanted to base herself for a while and she really wanted to learn French. So she went to be an au pair in Paris for 3 months. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I felt scared. I was like, I can't be alone. I was like, I'll have to go home. And she was like, you don't have to go home. Like carry on. Like, this will be good for us, right? I went into like complete, like, again, intrusive thoughts. Like, she doesn't love me anymore. She doesn't want me anymore. But it was like, you know, I think.
Why am I not a French man?
Yeah, literally. Well, it was like, you know, codependence in a relationship is a whole nother thing we can go into. But it was really important for us to like keep independent in quite a codependent living situation. You know, we didn't have jobs, so we were 24 hours a day together. I was like, I can do this. I'm going to hitchhike somewhere. And I just got picked up by this man called Andy, 64-year-old guy, ex-IT consultant, just turned an old British gas van into a little like thing with a mattress in the back. He was driving down to Portugal. He was like, I'm going to this thing called a rainbow gathering. Which is basically these temporary communities that are set up to live for a whole moon cycle, and anyone is welcome, and there's no money exchange there, and they live off the land. And I was like, sounds kind of scary, but sounds like a free trip down to Portugal. Yeah, it felt like this. And prior to this, I had no experience with like spirituality.
Oh wow, okay.
At all. I had like, I was still kind of in like, I guess, hedonism world. Like I liked partying and I liked finding connection through that. I didn't know this myself, but I wasn't open in the way I thought I was. And I arrive at this place. It's on this like random Portuguese lane. You go down, 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 and then there's like all the cars are left, and then you're told it's going to be a 30-minute walk into the valley to go there. As I'm walking down, I just see all these like naked people.
Stop.
And 4 people run up to me, 2 men, 2 women. They all hug me, and I'm standing in the middle like this, and they're like, welcome home. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I was freaking out. I felt so confronted. Every insecurity I've ever tried to suppress rose to the surface. I was like, I'm going to just embrace this. And I spent 40 days living in this community.
Wow.
And it completely changed my life.
Wow.
It you know, I think when you take away all the, like, don't use phones there or anything like that. When you take away all the external stimulus from society, and you are entering into this human space where these people have gathered just to basically live in nature and like celebrate like a primal way of living to how we used to be. Like the nudity thing is crazy, right? Because understandably, when I say like these naked people ran up to me, most people's reaction is like, what? And it's like, do we forget that like we were born naked? Like, do we forget that it is
and
just
under these clothes we're wearing, we
are all naked.
Yeah.
And I remember at the beginning being like, I can't believe how free and comfortable these people are. It also was like so desexualized. Like the nudity is so desexualized there. And I think it's particularly thing being raised in the UK. There's such a taboo around nudity. I remember thinking like, it's so cool they do this, but never will I be the one doing this. And like, you know, lo and behold, like I think it was like week 3, and I was like in my tent, I was like, right, today I'm going to go out naked.
Wow.
And I was like, I remember
being birthed anew.
Literally. And I was like, I remember journaling, like I'd go out and have these crazy experiences in these like sharing circles and learning about synchronicity and manifestation and all these things. Then I'd go back to my tent and I'd just write and write and write about it, because it was like, I needed an escape from it as well, because it was really overwhelming. And it was actually really triggering my existentialism again, because so much of it is about energy and like nothingness and like the ether. And I remember, so I like slowly unzipped my tent like naked for the first time. I remember like I took 1 foot out, and then I just like, you know, walked towards, I think it was like breakfast time. And the first like guy or girl that I was friends with came run up to me, was like, oh, it's breakfast, like you come in. And obviously I realized in that moment, none of them know this is the first time I'm they wouldn't have even noticed if I'm normally wearing clothes or not, right? Yeah. No one spoke to me any differently. No one reacted any differently. It was just like a normal day.
You in a new way.
It was just a normal day as it was any other day. Yeah. And it really, really healed something in me that I didn't know needed or wanted healing, because just this level of, it was a new layer of self-acceptance, I guess. Living with these people that brought so much ritual into their life. There's like a fire called the sacred fire that burns from the day they get there till the day they leave. But some people will just willingly like sleep by the fire all night to make sure it never goes out. And back to that thing of like, well, does it really matter if it goes out? Well, of course it doesn't. But when we put emphasis on the sacred fire, it became a space where people would sit and they would share and they would cry and they would go through all of their deepest, darkest traumas, and they'd also go through their most joyous singing and chanting and being together together. And I only thought things like this existed in like movies and stuff, right? And to an onlooker, it might be like some weird like hippie cult, but it is what you make of it, right? And I'll be forever grateful to have spontaneously found this place to learn about meditation, to learn about yoga, to learn about synchronicities and the law of attraction and all these things that birthed, I believe, the life I'm living now. And yeah, it was a really special time.
Wow. I'm like, I wish this podcast could be like a week long because I just know that you have so many stories. Like, that's not in the book, the nudity element of it, right?
Is it not? I don't know.
No,
I don't
it's
remember.
actually not.
Okay.
You talk about the fire and you also talk about, you know, if you were the one tending to the fire, you can kind of look up at this night sky and sort of ponder the world. And there's a ritual for you in the solitude of it too.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I would love if you could quickly touch on this idea of communal living versus the expectation that many of us will be raised into, which is living in a nuclear family in kind of a, you know, traditionally a heteronormative relationship, monogamous, living in a stationary household on land. What was your experience in living in that communal setting, and how did that shape what you wanted from your life architecture?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. It's a really complex, like paradoxical one for me always, because I'm such an advocate for community living, yet I don't think I want to live in a community, which is so interesting. So I've had periods of time living in community and I've really enjoyed it. The more I got to know myself, I realized there's parts of me that are inherently quite selfish. And I feel really proud to say that because I think we use the word selfish in such a negative context when actually what it means is like you have a certain set of self needs that you should try and meet. So like the way I describe myself as a selfish person are ways that I'm really comfortable with being selfish and they don't harm anyone else. I have some amazing friends in the UK that have these amazing projects that are living in big communal houses. One particular couple that I know have started this amazing community down in Devon. It's like a 9-bedroom house. They run yoga every morning. There's workshops. There's like 9 people living there. You'll have to come and see them one day.
Like a dream.
They run events there. It's like utopia. They make music all the time. They built a recording studio there and they just like live as community. And I love dipping into these spaces and being there. But there's something about having my own space that remained really important. So when the idea of living on a boat came up, it felt like this perfect balance because there is such an evident strong community on the canals. It's allowed me to live in the UK so comfortably because you know how you say in London or we get on the trains you don't say hello to people. Like it would be very bizarre to walk past another boat or boater and not say hello. Like you have that camaraderie. And the reason the boating community in the UK is so interesting is communities are often made up with people of shared like-minded interests or shared ideologies on life, and again can become echo chambers. I would say is a danger of them. But boaters, you have everyone from like, there's a guy next to me at the moment who this like punk rocker who calls himself like Dr. Marvelicious. He only drinks Prosecco from a bottle and wears like leather hot pants.
Wow. And
we have different music tastes, political views. Like we are so different, yet we hang out on the towpath and we just like talk about life because we're both boaters. So it's the boat that binds you together. Like there's a retired couple that we've just been hanging out with for a bit who we probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to come across. And then there's also loads of like young creatives. The only kind of commonality we have is that we all live on a boat. The boats bring different people for different reasons to them. So we've got this living community where we're able to have our own space, but also are able to kind of share this sense of community together. But yeah, I don't think there's like a right or wrong way. I think the nuclear household thing is a dangerous one because I just don't like how many people tell me they don't know the names of their neighbors, you know, or they don't know like anyone that lives on their street, or oh, that neighbor's, what I always hear from like when I'm at family house, they've parked near there again. I'm like, all right, you know, like, you know, like there's just so much like this is my land, or their wheel is on my grass, you know. And it's like, well, there was once upon a time when none of this land belonged to everyone, you know, like this whole land ownership thing is like just makes us again so segregated. But have you had experiences?
I was going to say, when you don't know anything about your neighbour, you
Yeah.
don't know anything about their life, anything about their story, how are you to have empathy for them?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like if you actually knew the reality, maybe it's like a single mother, she has 3 kids, she's stressed, and that day she's parked a little bit on your grass, right? If you knew the story, maybe you'd have empathy for, oh, okay, it's a hectic day in her life.
Yeah.
You know, she probably just wanted to get home and like feed the kids and stuff. But yeah, it's like, it's this anonymity. The faceless anonymity means that it's so much easier to demonize people.
So sad, isn't it?
So sad. So sad.
And it is. And it's that lack of what we were talking about earlier, the compassion. That you can't have compassion for them because they're just number 7. Number 7 with the blue Peugeot that keeps parking on my grass, you know. We just dehumanize everyone so strongly. Have you like lived in community? Have you got experience living in community?
So I went to a very unique university
Okay.
called Minerva, and it was essentially 160 of us from all around the world, and we moved to 6 countries around the world as this group of 160.
Wow.
And I had 2 roommates in my bedroom the entire 4 years.
Wow.
They felt like family.
Yeah.
And the whole university was designed around creating these really strong bonds as a community and a shared sense of belonging and value system, so that even though we're very different, we come from massively different cultural contexts, we're all bound by wanting the best for everyone. And there wasn't like a competitive culture. It was very much like co-living, and we share a kitchen, like 160, 180 of us.
Wow.
And I would be part of a cooking group of 20 people where me and 2 people would cook for everyone 1 day a week, and then every other day of the week someone cooks for me. And I would explore the city through the lens of people from everywhere. That taught me the value of living in community. Absolutely the hardship of it too, right?
Yeah.
Messy kitchens at times, or not having the opportunity to have real solitude in my bedroom space because I'm sharing a bedroom with 2 other people who also want it to be a certain way. But I've realized that I crave that community in normal everyday adult life, and I am thinking a lot about what I want my future life to look like and how I can ensure that that community is a part of my like settled life.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think it's like we're scared to be like triggered by other people, and communities do that so well.
So well.
And it's like we're so quick, like, oh, they've said that to me, like they're not a bit of me. But it's like
cancel them.
literally, and it's like they're gone. Whereas when you're living with people, like I had it, I guess, at university, when you live in like a shared house, you can't just escape from these people, and you have to start to be flexible in your boundaries and flexible in your what you believe is right. Like I start the book and always like to want to say this when I share my story about I don't actually believe I know anything, and like everything I've said today and everything we'll continue to talk about is not me being like I know this and this is how you should live. And I come back to this story at the beginning of the book where when I was in India I got to live in an ashram for 30 days.
What is an ashram for anyone who doesn't know?
An ashram it was a yoga teacher training center, so I guess it's like a spiritual center, let's say, often found in like yogic philosophies, like where you're going to learn and study yoga is how I'd describe an ashram. But yeah, it's a really good question. I wonder what Google would say. That's what I believe an ashram to
look
be.
it up,
Yeah,
besties.
I apologize if that's not the way, but yeah, I'd say it's a spiritual center where you go to learn more about yoga. So we lived in this ashram, and there was a guru there called Ashutosh, who I refer to a lot in the book. He was this like guy in his mid-60s, and every day he would give us these lectures about life, these philosophical lectures. And he would start the beginning of every lecture by saying, just before I start, I want everyone to remember that I know nothing. And I remember always being like, this guy is like the wisest guy I've ever met. How can he think that he knows nothing? And he says, the more a person thinks they know, the less they know. And that is genuinely my main philosophy to life, because when you become the knower, you stop being open to new ideas, you stop being open to new opportunities, you become so one channel minded that you stop being a student. So like I hope that some of the things I've said on this podcast, when I listen to back in 5 years, I no longer believe. Like that to me is an achievement. And I say at the end of the book, like, I hope, like someone says to me, you've really contradicted yourself in that book. I say, oh, I hope so. Because I'm a messy, discombobulated person that is not writing things to tell you. Like I would say, this is not a self-help book. If anything, it's an anti-guru book. It's like, I'm a mess, but I'm a vulnerable one. So let's open up all these life topics that sometimes I get so right and sometimes I ignore and get so wrong. I read back one of the chapters of my own book the other day, The Joy of Enough. And I was literally like, oh my God, I have been living the opposite to this in the last 3 weeks. Like, thank you that I'm able to speak to myself from a previous time. And it's this danger of please don't be idolizing myself or anyone else you're watching online, especially if they're coming across as the knower. Because none of us know anything, but that is also the beauty of it, right?
Yeah. I actually, that line that you shared from this guru about the more you think you know, the less you actually know, that's really sat with me the last few days, because I often struggle as an online person who tells stories about their life, who is naturally pedestaled by a lot of people because people take advice from me and my life lessons, to remember that even though I present something as a lesson, it does not mean that I ever actually have stopped learning about that thing as well, right? So I'm sharing something literally in the present moment about how I feel about a past experience, but to acknowledge that we're all in the process of becoming. We always will be. There is never a static point at which we have reached a level of wisdom. And I don't think that should stop us from sharing, because I think there's so much beauty in whatever we think we know. And I think it can resonate with people still, but to acknowledge that it's always changing. I would love if you could speak to the chapter, The Joy of Enough. What does it mean to feel like you have enough? Where has that shown up in your life?
I think the chapter started when a friend said to me, like, just imagine for a moment that, like, this is it. Like, whatever you have right now, like, wherever you're living, your partner, your job, your salary, the friends you've got, like, what if that was it? And, like, anything you're striving towards, you're never going to get it. It's not going to get any further. Like, how do you think you'd live?
Interesting.
And I was like, as quite like a driven, project-based entrepreneurial person, like, oh my God, what if this is it? If this is it, then it would have to be enough, right? And I feel like as a society, I guess, no, let's not say that. As a me, I really...
Society, aka me.
Well, I'm like, I don't want to speak for other people because maybe people get this better than me. I can only really speak for myself in this. I really often struggle with the enoughness of anything. And social media is a great example, and maybe you can relate to this, but it's like when I first started my channel, I was like, imagine one day I got like 10,000 followers, and then you get there and it's 50,000, then you get there and it's 100,000, and the feeling of trying to reach 500,000 was exactly the same feeling as the 10,000. So it's never enough, you know? The goalposts just move. So the joy of enough is this idea of like, can we sit in either an achievement and feel like this is enough? Because, you know, for me, the book's been such a minefield. Like, finishing writing the book felt like the biggest achievement of my life. But then all of a sudden, to promote the book and try and get everyone to buy it, writing the book wasn't enough again.
True.
So
it's just the start.
It's just the start of the marketing, you know. And it's like, well, you've sold loads of copies, but is it going to be a Sunday Times bestseller? Oh, great. So I hit the target, but it's not enough again. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be driven. I think the joy of enough is a practice that I just want to introduce into my life on a regular basis. So sitting in like today, what I have is enough, and really enjoying and having gratitude for everyone that follows me online, for everyone that has bought the book, for my friends, for my wife, for like all the stuff I already have, because, you know, this could be it for so many reasons. Like my life could end tomorrow, my career could end tomorrow, anything could happen. And are we constantly going to be looking back of feeling like I never sat in the enoughness of the contentment because I was always wanting more? So yeah, I guess it's just like it's that moment of reflection.
It's such a difficult paradox, isn't it? Because so much of what we've been discussing is like how to live a path that feels right for you. And obviously part of that is perhaps the realization that you don't like your life as it is. So it's like, how can we both cultivate a feeling of enoughness and a feeling of gratitude for what is, while also orienting ourselves into the brave path of discovering something that fits better.
Yeah, it's my constant daily battle. But it's like a battle I love to be in, because we're always going to flip between the two as well, right? And it's just the knowing and the joy of experiencing this is kind of the point of it all. It's certainly a minefield.
I'm so grateful to be uncertain. I'm so grateful to, you know, be in a job that I don't love, because I know that more opportunities will flow my way as they find me, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of acknowledging that maybe you're not at your happiest point, but still feeling grateful for the past you that wanted everything you have now.
Yeah, and also like you touched on, Buddhism is like having this internal sense of peace, or this internal freedom of enoughness kind of again builds this amazing shield around you that like whatever you're experiencing in life, like you can go to work with a completely enlightened mindset, and therefore the job doesn't matter because you're at peace, because it's enough.
Yeah.
So it's like how you choose to respond to the situation you're in is so much more important again than the situation itself. So it's this quest of finding internal freedom over the external freedom is for me kind of the answer. People always say to me like, I bet it's so nice like living out in nature, like it must be so good for you. And I say, when I'm feeling in a really good space, 100%, like being on top of the boat in nature, I feel so grateful. When I'm in a really low space, the silence and the loneliness and the vastness of nature can be deafening and traumatic almost. It's like the nature is just the nature, you know. If I'm not feeling good in it, then it kind of makes no difference. So if we can find this sense of freedom and peace within ourselves, we can be, you know, in IKEA surrounded by like thousands of people on a really hot day trying to buy a sofa and be completely enlightened, Or we could be in Bali, which was my experience, in a hammock drinking a coconut and feel so trapped. Like there was no
Wow.
point of being there.
Yeah.
So it's, like I say, cultivating this within ourselves rather than always searching for the external to make us feel better.
One of the ways that you discuss in the book that you personally do that is to create rituals
Hmm.
around the little things of every day. And that is very casual magic coded. It's so much of what we believe in this podcast. How can we make the mundane beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about some of your rituals and perhaps how everyone listening can create rituals in their life?
Yeah, I'd love to. It started in lockdown.
Mm.
I was like going through a really bad time and I was working with a coach at the time, and he brought this phrase to me of like, you need to learn how to make the mundane sacred, because I was really struggling with like, I can't go and do this and I can't do and do that and I can't go out here. And he was like, yeah, but mate, you know, there's a whole universe firstly inside yourself and also like at your fingertips. So it would be the small things. Like for me, making the mundane sacred and bringing ritual, it's basically bringing presence. So it's like living on my boat, we don't have central heating, so in the winter I light the fire, and you wake up in the morning, it could either be like, oh, it's bloody freezing, like I've got to go get the wood, or I've got to do this. Or you could turn it into a ritual and being like, okay, this is like a primal meditative act. Like I'm going to gather these sticks, be so grateful for this tree, and light this fire and like wait for the boat to heat up. I'm going to be doing it either way, so why not bring the ritual into it? Or maybe a more relatable one I try and do a lot is doing the washing up.
Yeah.
Some people hate doing the washing up, right?
Me.
Yeah. Well, and also, can I just say, some mornings I definitely wake up and I'm like, I wish I had central heating. It's bloody freezing. So again, I believe in ritual making the mundane sacred. I definitely don't get it right every day. Same with the washing up. You know, we could be washing up being like, oh, like I just want to crack on and do this, or like I haven't got time for this. Or we can be like, how does this water like feel on my skin, right? This warm soapy water, like what are actually the feelings I'm experiencing? And this sponge as it's washing this plate with all this food that's been on it that I've been lucky enough to eat, or like this onion that like somebody planted a seed and then like somehow because of the sunlight and the water managed to grow, and someone picked the onion, and then that guy took the onion all the way to the grocery store, and then I went and got the onion and cooked it and ate it to give me nutrients, and I'm now washing the plate that it was on. Like, how is that not magic? Do you know what I mean? So it's like becoming present is like, what is this? Oh, this plate I'm holding, like someone made this plate. You know, like these bringing the ritual and is bringing the presence into the moment. And how lucky am I to have running water, and how lucky am I to have a sink and a tap and food on my plate? Taking these small acts that we're going to do every day and just turning them a bit more ritualistic. It's just playing with life, really.
I would love to ask you, why do you think that so many people believe that traveling or getting outside of their circumstances will solve their inner turmoil?
It's mainly down to comparison. The age-old phrase of comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, look, social media is one thing. Obviously, everyone knows like we're glorifying people's lives on there. But even if we just take it down more to more like human base level, I feel like it's easier to compare your life to a life you're not living than it is to actually make any change. It's almost like
that's a big one.
I feel like, and I'm going to say this quite brashly, and I say it with love because I hope it helps, it's almost a little bit like cowardly. Like it's easier to be like, well, if I just traveled, then this would be good, because then you don't really have to do anything. So an example that happens quite often is when I wake up in the morning and I'm sitting either on the front or on top of my boat, people walk past and they say to me like, oh, I envy you, mate. Like that is the life, right? And I noticed that, again, it doesn't matter if I'm in a really good mindset or a bad mindset, they think they envy me. And particularly on the mornings I'm not feeling great, I'm like, isn't it funny that you're envying a perception of me, right? And what I believe that perception to be is a perception of perceived freedom. I don't believe a lot of these people walking past want to live on a boat. I don't think they want to sort out their own toilet waste. I don't think they want to worry about engine spillages. I think what they want is a perceived freedom that they're not having in their life, right? But how much easier is it to just walk on the canals on the way to work and envy everyone and think that as freedom and then get on with your life than it is to actually unstuck yourself and make a change. So I think this traveling or this changing everything or leaving marriages is like, we feel is so unachievable that let's just idealize everyone else that's doing cool stuff, because then I can just stay stuck in it.
Damn. Yeah. Damn. That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah. Well, that's where the Taking the First Step chapter came from, because
Yeah.
I hope when people read that chapter, it allows them to think, okay, I don't need to go and sell all my possessions and live on a boat.
Yeah.
I don't need to go and travel the world and hitchhike to India, but I can implement freedom step by step and then see what happens, because the stuckness and the comparison is I think what keeps us there.
As some kind of parting words, what would you say to anyone who is feeling stuck? I know we've touched on so many things, but do you have sort of a parting final message that you really want to hammer home?
I love you.
Aww.
And you're doing the best you can with the resources you have. There are ways to also reach for other resources. It's so hard because I'm such an empathic person that I'm trying to imagine like the one person I'm speaking to, but then I notice all the layers of issues that each single person's having, that it's so hard to give one direction thing. Yeah. But let's just stick with I love you.
That's such a human message, and that you love them in that state of stuckness too.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that you'll just love them when they finally reach the dream lifestyle that maybe they want to acquire, but
everything is temporary.
Exactly. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I feel like there's so much here. Like, I know that I am going to love listening back to this episode. I really, really mean that. I think you've touched on so many things. I think there's such like a natural, gorgeous flow to the way that you tell stories, and you really bring us into your world in such a relatable manner. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a final little question, a little ritual for you. Could you tell us a moment of casual magic from this week?
Yes, I can. I've been like traveling around a lot, book stuff, event stuff, all of this, and I found that I was staying in like
just author life.
So yeah, no, you know me. So like again, not as glamorous as it sounds, tiring and discombobulating and dysregulating, to the point where I found myself staying in a few hotels recently, which is something I never would have used to have done. And I was almost kind of glorifying a bit this idea of like, oh, I'm being put in a hotel, but actually it felt quite clinical. So the other night I decided I didn't want to stay in a hotel. So I decided to go on Airbnb. In reflection, thinking back, should have gone on couch surfing actually. No, the reason I wouldn't have gone on couch surfing is because I had quite a planned days that I needed to do. So I went on Airbnb and I actively found an Airbnb where I saw a lot of the reviews said the host was really lovely and likes to speak to the people. So I went and stayed in this little home in like the outskirts of London where this woman lives, young girl from Ukraine who now lives there full time. And I just went there with the idea, really hoping they'd be there, because obviously on Airbnb you don't know, and just spent the evening in her little like garden, all drinking tea together, like talking about life. It felt like I was traveling again. And it was such a great magical reminder to me of like, you know, particularly as you start to get busier in life and I'm doing all these things, it can be so easy to be like, oh, I'll get a taxi here and get a hotel here, convenience. But at what cost? You know? Like, I often think to myself, I'm so proud of everything I've achieved, but it definitely doesn't mean I'm happier than I was 7 years ago when I just had a backpack and my boots and was on the road. And it's something I've been reflecting on a lot actually, like what is any of, you know, this success as we call it. So yeah, just sitting with this, you know, I think 55-year-old woman who works in advertising and a young Ukrainian girl who had to leave her country, and me just drinking tea, talking about life was just magic. So yeah, no more hotels.
Wow, I love that you not only shared a moment of casual magic but turned that into such a beautiful reflection on like success and, you know, convenience culture. And I notice that so much in myself, that particularly the more deadlines I have, the more that my days are filled, the more I do find myself opting for convenience in order to kind of make it all happen. But it's a great question for me too. At what cost? What is lost in that process? And yeah, I know that I definitely want to say no to more things in this next season of life in order to foster more of the humanness. For everyone listening, if you would like to take a moment to reflect on this episode, to kind of bring it home into your world, then this is an opportunity for you to get out a notebook or a journal or the notes app on your phone, and I'm just going to provide you with a question that you can use to reflect on. This week, I want to ask you, even when it feels uncomfortable at first, what are the benefits of stepping out of your comfort zone? Which areas of your life could benefit from more exploration? What are 3 small shifts that you can make in your daily routine to create more internal freedom? Thank you guys so much for listening. I can't believe you made it all the way to the end of this episode. It's very impressive in 2025, the age of short form, to make it through a whole piece of long form content. So well done for fostering the presence to get through and to allow this conversation and its wisdom to trickle into your life. I also just want to take a moment to really thank and honour this space that we're recording the podcast in. This land is called Future Roots, and it's a holistic and environmental community hub. And I really believe that this land amplifies the conversations that we get to have, and it's just the most beautiful energy. We're literally in the middle of the forest. So yeah, a thank you to this land. As always, I want to say to you guys that you are enough. You're enough exactly as you are, even on your quest of self-improvement and trying to achieve your dreams. You're actually enough today, and I'm sending you the biggest hug from afar. Can't wait to see you guys next week.
Stay tuned and stay magical.